If you had a choice to put your money, your assets, on either one of these lines, where would you put your money? Do you want the red line to reflect your money, or do you want the blue line to reflect your money? I'd like to take you through a time tunnel now. I'm going to give you some money. I'm going to give you $100,000 for the journey. You can give it back when we're done, please. But the year is 1999, and we're going to say that you're 40 years old. In 1999, the president at that time was Bill Clinton, and the markets were extremely prosperous back then. In 1999, the markets were up 19.5% that year. Everybody was becoming wealthy and rich on the NASDAQ. And if you're too old to remember that or too young to remember that, it was a very prosperous time back then. So you decide to put your money under management with an advisor, and that year he made you $19,000. Now, at this time and for the next few decades, according to the federal government, the average fees in a 401k plan were right at 3 points. So 3% of 100,000, I'd spend 3,000 to make 19,000. Sounds like a good deal to me. How about you? Would you spend 3,000 to make 19,000? I have no issues with that. But what happened in 2000? The dot-com implosion in March of 2000 crippled the markets. The markets tanked by over 10%. Your 119 is now down to 107. The market's lost. Let me ask you a question. Did you have to pay your advisor in the bad season? Or was he free because of the bad year? Of course you had to pay your advisor. He's not free. In 2001, what happened that turned America upside down and we lost all confidence in the marketplace? Of course, America will never forget the 9/11 terrorist attacks. In your 401k, you lost 13% more. You're now below the 100,000 that you brought to the table. You're down to 93,000. Gotta ask the question. Your advisor had 2 bad years in a row. Does he charge you for his advice? Do you get out of paying him because he had 2 bad years in a row? And what happened in 2002? It was a full-blown recession year. It was not a good year. Markets eroded another 23%. Your $100,000 is now down to 70,000 and change. Then the markets started to come back. It took all the way to December 31st of 2007 to be back where you were in 1999. You have now paid 8 years in fees to be exactly where you were 8 years ago. At 3 points, you spent $24,000. At 2 points, you spent about $16,000. And at 1 point, you spent about $8,000. Even if you had a 1-point deal, you spent $8,000 and you only made $19,000. That advisor is costing you almost half of your gains. Not cool. And where would you go and spend $24,000 to make $19,000? That's a loss, isn't it? Continuing on. What happened in 2008? Most people watching this video had to have been around and had a balance in an account in 2008, woke up and could not have been happy. How many people do you know who were devastated by the crash of 2008? How many do you suppose were sick to their stomach when they woke up and saw their balance was 40 to 50% below what they'd had? Do you think anybody was upset about that? Other than me? It was real. By the time the year was over, you were down 38%. You're back down to 73 grand that year. You're in 9 years and you're down almost $27,000. You're 9 years in fees and you're losing money. You can't possibly be happy. 2009, recovery. It takes all the way to 2012 to almost get back to where you were. You're up $16,000 13 years into the deal. Even at one point, you spent $13,000 in fees to make 16 grand. You made $3,000 profit. Not too attractive. At 2 points, you spent $26,000 to make 16. You lost 10 grand. And if you're in a 3-point 401k deal, it was an absolute slaughter of you. You spent $39,000 to make 16,000. Not cool. But your advisor's happy. And he's telling you when the market hiccups and your account goes down, you only lose when you sell. What he's really saying to you is if you sell, I don't get paid. Now we're going to scroll down a little because it's important. The actual rate of return, not the average, taking all those numbers and averaging them because that's not real. The actual rate of return in the market was 3.39%. Everybody says, my broker did good. He made me 29.6%. Or, we did good last year. We made 9.5%. They forget that the bad years play into your return. How many people would be jumping up and down for a 3.39% return for 18 years? And keeping in mind, in 2016, 18 years into the deal, you're up $82,000. That's great. But how much did you spend for those 18 years? Remember, at 1% these last few years, 1,500, 1,600, 1,600, 1,800, you've probably spent over $15,000 at 1%, over $30,000 at 2%, and at 3%, $50,000 or more. Now, as a quick footnote before I go further, I just want to say we will be coming out with a new calculator within the next week or two. And of course, this past year has been a record year in the stock market. And I understand it changes the 20-year Wall Street returns to slightly over 4%. And of course, we could have another banner year or few years. But also, we know that, especially in today's world political climate, we never know what will happen. A nuclear Iran, North Korea, Russia, even a possible impeachment of the president would surely, almost certainly mean another financial disaster. So the focus has got to be to get that money out of harm's way. So, with that, Let's see what would have happened if you put your money on the blue line. Now, we have an exclusive AIG deal with the Merrill Lynch Index that's a no-cap deal. But also with AIG, we've got an S&P 500 cap deal at 13%. And I'm just going to use that as a least case example. So I put that 13 in here. How does that cap work? Well, when we go back up to the top of the page and look at 1999 again, the markets were up 19.5%. So how does that cap deal work in an index life contract? This is how it works. If you were in a cap program, you get 100% up to the cap total, which means when the market was up 19.5, you only got 13. So you were at 113 and everyone else in the market got 119. Which would you prefer, 119 or 113? Well, we know the answer to that, of course. Everybody who picks it would pick the 119. But when the market eroded 10%, you got a 0. In 01, when they lost 13%, you got a 0 again. Now, they're at 93,000 and you're at 113 and holding. My question to you is now, which line do you prefer to be on? The red line or the blue line? In 2002, they lost 23% and you got another 0 and holding. Now you're going to see how we do this in the next video, but which line do you prefer? The next year, the markets rocket 26% and you only got 13. But 26% of what? They're at 90, you're at 127. Next year, 899, both earn the same. The next year, you're both at 3. The next year, 1362 to 13. The next, 3.5 to 3.5. 38% loss to 0. So now you're at 167,000 versus 73. So the question is, which line would you prefer to be on now? The red line or the blue line? And by the time we get down to the bottom, we're just shy of $333,000 to 182. That's how significant the difference is between the red line and the blue line and $100,000 in a 401k. The only way to do it the old way is I'm at a loss. How about you?